some of the organizations within the network to teach personal safety habits to people with disabilities, especially younger, the youth of residents and partners with Cheshire Homes. Quick introduction to myself. My name is Antra Bhargava, and while I have a very fancy title of self-defense trainer, I'm actually a lawyer and chartered accountant by profession. And this week I joined as CEO of Suvitas, which is India's first transition care hospital, where we basically do neuro, ortho and cardio rehab. Now, I'm not here to talk about Suvitas, I'm here to talk about the opportunity that you all gave me, and I think it is a unique opportunity to teach personal safety to people with disabilities and my learnings from that and the value I saw that that brought to them. Why was I the right person to teach self-defense? I am one of India's first female black belts in Taekwondo. I started learning Taekwondo, which is a Korean national martial arts, at the age of 5, and I stopped at the age of 16 when I broke my knee. I have 2 black belts in it. The first I received at the age of 12 and the second at the age of 14. I'm also India's first and youngest female national referee at the National Games for the sport of Taekwondo, which was, I think, back in '98. I'm very old, so I've forgotten back when that National Games was. Maybe 2 years here and there. But I'm also a woman who has lived and grown up in India. I'm also somebody who's been the beneficiary of generational wisdom about my own safety and values that. I'm also somebody who, as a young person, has lived with temporary disabilities. When I talk about my knee injury, which lasted 10 years before surgery could occur, it being a fairly complex situation. And I used to spend about 6 months of my year on crutches. That was at a time when I lived, worked and studied in Ireland. I am a graduate of law from Trinity College in Ireland. So I lived alone in various countries. I worked on my own. And therefore there are a lot of different challenges that I faced. As an individual myself, that broadened my understanding of personal safety beyond that which martial arts gave me as a foundation. And the way we learned martial arts, very important for people to understand, was not as a sport. It became a sport in the 1998, in the 2000 Olympics, when it became recognized as one in Seoul. But martial arts is an art form, and you learn it almost like you learn a religion. So you create habits out of it. It's not about kicking and boxing and punching. It's about mental attitude. It's about flexibility, agility, strength in every aspect of your life. And that's the way I was taught it. These days it's more of a sport that you do in a gym and get degrees and certificates, and it's very different to me. That's important because what I began to realize as I went through my life is you can learn the basics of personal safety and build habits without training in martial arts. Very few people today commit to martial arts the way that I did, and I was fortunate to be beaten into doing it by a wonderful mother. Now, what does that mean? That means that you have to combine core physical exercise and understanding of your body, concepts like body shaming, concepts like nutrition, into an ecosystem where the psychology of personal safety, the psychology of how children learn as opposed to how adults learn, as opposed to how people with disabilities learn, all into creating a framework and doing it in such a way that it's very simple. So the way that I teach and the way that I taught the kids that I had the privilege of teaching with Cheshire Homes was starting off by asking, and I'll ask you the same question, how many of you brushed your teeth this morning? Good. Who taught you to brush your teeth? Your mother or your father, presumably, or your caretaker. And the way that they taught you was the same way that we learn today. Up, down, well, sorry, take the toothbrush, wash the toothbrush, put the toothpaste on the toothbrush, bring it to your mouth, open your mouth, up, down, run around, rinse, clean your toothbrush, end of story. Nothing's changed. There's no additional science to it. Simple techniques, similar to how you learn to cross the road. Look left, look right, take a step forward, look left, look right, be alert, right? That's how simple personal safety needs to be in order for all of us And this is beyond gender, beyond disability, beyond ability, beyond social class. It's for everybody. And what I created about 10 years ago, for myself initially, because when you're disabled you can't go and do your practice as a martial artist, you have to modify it. So I created a model for myself called PACE, and it's as simple as learning to brush your teeth or crossing the road. And I tested it out, I was invited to do so with people with ability, for want of a better word. And I had done it for children and adults and transgenders and people in churches and schools and corporates and CTOs. Over 20,000 people we did this with before I came and did this with Cheshire Home. So it was a tried and tested model, but it had never been tried and tested with people with disabilities before. So it was an experience for me and a huge amount of learning. There isn't a lot of information out there globally on how to do this. So there was a bit of a chance that you all were taking with me, and a bit of a, quite a steep learning curve for me. So I'll give you a brief overview of PACE, and then I'll give you some quick learnings, and I'm happy to take any questions, because as I know Chairman Sir said that you have a packed agenda. So PACE stands for P, preparation, A, awareness, C, clarity, E, escapism. And the way to use these techniques, or these are the tasks that you need to do, is first look at your life and divide it into 3 zones. We all have a safe zone, we all have a risk zone, and we all have a crisis zone. A safe zone is not somewhere that you look at your head and say, okay, my home is a safe zone. A safe zone is a set of circumstances. At this moment, at this time, this place is safe because there's security, there's nobody barging in with guns, because you know the people around you, etc., etc., etc. So a list of criteria that go into your mindful assessment of this and an active decision that at this moment you are in a safe zone. So in your safe zone you behave differently, and the task that you do is preparing to leave it, because only about 5% of our life is spent in a safe zone. The majority of our life is spent in a risk zone. Could be walking from here to your car, could be walking on the street, could be in a crowded bus, could be taking a taxi, could be late at night, could be in your own home with new people working, a carpenter or an electrician who you're not familiar with, and you're alone and the house doors are open and you're sick. These are just circumstances. So in your risk zone, so in your safe zone you prepare to leave it. In your risk zone, your task is to be aware. And awareness involves firstly sensory awareness and avoiding distraction, which takes away from your sensory awareness. Most of us have experienced some crisis in our life, and the way I define crisis is a moment in time in which your personal safety is threatened and in which you must act. Irrespective of whether you have a second-dan black belt in Taekwondo or whether you have a disability that is complete, that you cannot use your limbs. The first instinct for any human being in a situation of crisis is to panic. And the physiology of panic is the same for all of us. In order to combat panic and to be able to make a good decision about your personal safety, you must therefore control panic, and you must therefore get C, clarity. Clarity defines how you act in that moment. You respond, not react. And the tools for clarity are the same around the world: deep breathing and focus. Okay. And the final one is E. And I said this and all the kids used to laugh. I said, I'm not here to create a Rajnikant or a Salman Khan. You're not here to beat the guy up and stand on him with the red underwear outside and the flowing cape, You're here to protect yourself and return to your safe zone, which is E, escape. And how do you escape? You escape by first asking for help. So if you have the ability to speak, you shout, you carry your voice. If you have the ability to speak, you shout in such a way that you scare someone, not you scream. So this whole Indian thing of, the B-grade movies where if a girl is threatened, it's like, bachao, bachao, bhagwan ke liye mujhe chhod do. That high-tone voice psychologically is a sign of weakness and encourages the predator to feel stronger. Whereas the way that I taught those of our children who could speak was to shout, which is a guttural reaction. And I'll give you a quick example. Forgive me, be prepared. Small but effective. Okay. So those of our kids who could learn for the first time that they had a voice and they could use it to generate and inspire fear, that they had the ability to inspire fear. Okay? And then of course there is the concept of running. Those of our children that could run. But those of us adults who can run don't run. We don't move. If you don't practice any of the techniques that I teach, you're not able to use it in a crisis situation. So one of the things that I was teaching, and I always teach everybody, ability or disability, blind, is you need to practice every single day to build a habit so it goes from your conscious mind to your subconscious mind, therefore in a crisis you respond. Right? Now, there's a lot more to this and it's a fully developed module and I'd love to do more and I learned how to say my name, I think, if I'm not mistaken, A-N-T, I've forgotten how I think, an A again. So I used to learn a lot of different things with these kids, but one of the things I learned for all people with, and I think you'll do an amazing job because I heard the same thing everywhere I went, that it's not about focusing on your disability, it's focusing on your ability. We all have limited ability and limited disability. If we have complete disability, then we are comatose. And if we have complete ability, we are God. So learning to identify your ability and disability was one of the first tasks I gave them. I used to make them write down lists. What are your abilities and what are your disabilities? What are the limitations on your ability? What are the limitations on your disability? And your first task is to maximize your ability and minimize your disability for the focus of your personal safety. My key learning from this, and this is, I guess, in some sort of way, a humble feedback to all of you, is people with disability have never been told that their body is something that they need to respect and therefore exercise. Basic exercise every day is something they should do. None of the kids had ever been taught what stretching was. They didn't know. I tried every language. They didn't know what strength training was. They didn't know what movement was. They didn't know what cardio was. I had to start from the very basic of explaining what they should be doing. There's no point me coming and teaching, not that I do teach kicking and boxing and punching anyway. But if you don't have the ability to maximize the movement that you have in people with disabilities, how do you get to that stage where you're a wheelchair national basketball player? Because some of our kids may have that potential. How do we get to the stage where people without legs are able to use their hands to escape an oncoming bus when they've just fallen out of a bus? And that was one of the questions that I was asked by one of the kids, one of the young girls, was that I can't move my lower limbs, I'm in a wheelchair, and when I leave the bus or if I leave transport, I sometimes feel like I'm going to fall. And if I fall, I'm afraid of traffic. I said, well, you have working hands. And she never even thought that she had working hands. And then I showed her a video of people walking on their hands. So, okay, that is, a certain level of commitment to your physical fitness to get there, but the basic understanding that hands can be used wasn't there. So, I'd love to have had the opportunity to work with them a lot more, but we luckily had partners who were, pure martial arts, physical trainers who were carrying this program forward. So it was a combination of me coming in and giving them, I guess, the theory and the model and the simplicity of being able to do this and incorporate it into their daily lives, and I guess a bit of motivation that you can do it, and then working for the longer term with physical trainers. But there's a lot more to this. The confidence that these children developed, and I went back to one home 5 times just because I fell in love with the energy of that place. The confidence, the kind of camaraderie that's created when you tell because I also had boys who sneaked into our class because they wanted to learn. The sense of camaraderie they get when the boys realize that, what, my personal safety is important too. I'm afraid of I'm blind, I get bullied in the college that I go to, and somebody's listening to me. It's not just all about women's safety. The model is gender blind, it doesn't care. There's no difference to how I feel pain. It's also a sense of body awareness when you tell a girl and you acknowledge that, you're just not used to being touched. It could be safe touch, could be unsafe touch, but you don't know what it's like to be touched. So taking empty plastic bottles and getting them to hit each other. So one, they learn what touch feels like, because they're just not used to it. And two, their senses start to get more alert to be able to move away when they're going to be hit. Again, that's a habit that your mind is building at a subconscious level. So that, I mean, I have a limited amount of time as per the schedule. So that's a brief overview of what PACE is and what my experience was teaching these children. Like I said, I'm somebody who comes from a professional background, and I created PACE and started going out with it because I have a dear love of social impact. I also have another NGO that I run in microfinance. But I rejoined this particular hospital because we look at therapy, neuromuscular therapy, along with psychology and nutrition and full-time doctors and nurses and round-the-clock care for people so that they can go home. We don't do palliative, but so that they can go home and live the best quality of their life. What we need to do every single time we teach somebody, anybody, able or disabled or whatever, limited disability, look at that individual holistically, comprehensively, look at all of their needs and map their needs to the solution, and then deliver that solution over time. The base has to be a simple model that can be scaled, of course, especially when you're such a large organization. But it's so simple to look at that person and say, you need more protein intake. Protein intake will increase your muscle quality. And then you need to be using those muscles to create a muscle that will work for the future. And to those of you who employ them, I believe there's a lady here from a cafe, it applies equally. You'll get the most out of your employees if you're getting them to exercise. The mind and the body are completely connected. So that's my message. I wish all of you a safe and healthy future. If you have any questions, please ask me now. I think I have 3 minutes left in my allotted time. And if it's okay with Chairman, I did bring some brochures, but we haven't put them out because there's nothing to sell. But in case anybody wanted to learn, because it's a unique system in India, it's the first of its kind.
Are you open to invitation to other homes?
I'm open to invitation anywhere as long as I can do it on a weekend when I'm not working at my hospital as the CEO, and I no longer can or will take any money for it. So it is either that you contribute back to your own charity or to a charity of my choice. And I would love for the opportunity to train the trainer, but it's just impossible to do because you need to have that comprehensive overview. I'm trying to work with some e-learning companies to develop this as a module that can be rolled out. But the time commitment to productize something like this is something I don't have right now.
How many weekends do you require? How many weekends?
So for a person with ability, it's generally a 90-minute workshop. But for the children that we did, we took 90 minutes 4 times. So either we get a full day with these kids, and it's very intense, or we divide it over 2 days, and there would be 6-hour days. So basically, what takes 90 minutes for you and me takes about 6 hours in total. But it's better to divide it up. 5 hours one day and 5 hours. Actually, 12 hours is what it took. But we didn't count time really, so we just kept doing it till they figured it out.
We would like to contact you.
Sure. Rana uncle is there, and the chairman is there. I'm sure you can contact me on Facebook. Is also there for PACE, although I don't really check it anymore. But anybody can have my email address, phone number. I'm happy to help. Even if you want to develop your own module for Cheshire and roll it out, you can take the content free of cost. Please, there's no charge for it. Just don't go and use it in a way that will get you into trouble. In the sense that, for example, I had a young child come and ask me, and this is in a private school in one of the top cities in the world, say, well, my grandfather molests me every time he visits, and my parents don't believe me. And she's 8 years old. I said, 11 years old. She said, what do I do? Now, it's a very delicate situation. What do I tell her to do? Go to the cops? Absolutely not. I can tell her that if you feel confident enough that your parents are, you are the person, firstly, who understands your problem. If you feel unsafe, that's your truth. And I must recognize it without judgment. Now, if your parents do not believe you, keep telling them the same thing consistently. Tell one of your teachers if you trust them. But next time your grandfather comes, and every single time your grandfather comes, go and lock yourself in your room. And that's a statement. So you take control over your body. But it's such a complex question to answer, and you get a lot of other questions like that. And there's a lot of confidentiality involved, a lot of subtlety involved. My biggest risk, and the reason I have not productized it till now, or given it to anybody else, and people ask me for it as a franchise model or whatever, is I just can't bear the thought of somebody giving the wrong advice to the wrong person, and that resulting in that person thinking that they can be superhuman and actually it devastate them. So, I've worked with a lot of other self-defense courses in the country. I attended them in Delhi and Bangalore, and there are two negatives that stood out. Is one, it was all male bashing. Everything was about protect the women and the men are evil. And the second one was we can beat and kick them, and we learn this in 40 minutes. And then you're just thinking, well, what happens if you raise your arm on somebody today? And this idea that a slap will scare someone, and they come back with 10 people tomorrow. So there's no, everything has to be thought through when you make mindful assessments of the risk that you're taking on when you engage in physical violence. So I do not encourage physical contact at all in retaliation. I say avoid it under all circumstances. Even as a martial artist, I very rarely engage in physical combat. I've done it twice, and both times I have been fortunate to come out, in real life. Obviously, I've been in physical combat in a safe environment in competitions. But the first time I took out a tooth of a 6'5" African American random drug lord type person who was trying to, mug me. And the second time was to protect someone else. But I've been fortunate. I still count myself as lucky. I am no great person when it comes to a combat situation. Anything can happen. Everybody must remember anything can happen, so be very, very careful.
Congrats for saving yourself.
Thank you. That was many years ago. Since then, I have tried to live my life in a safe zone and use my habits. But thank you.
Take down your email ID, please.
Sure, it's antra.bhargava@gmail.com. ANTRA. Okay, somebody teach me sign language. ANTRA. Yeah. Antra.bhargava@gmail.com, and it's 968 666 7110, and please use that number for WhatsApp, because as I just told you, I'm running 2 hospitals. 968 666 7110, and please WhatsApp me rather than call me, because I'm running 2 hospitals, and at the moment my phone is driving me nuts. Antra.Bhargava, BHARGAVA @gmail.com. And I just like to say before I finish that your staff are amazing, just amazing. My God, the love, the affection, your kids are, I brought my children along to some of the sessions so that they could learn. That joy, that enthusiasm for life, it's just incredible, and I'm so proud of having worked with you all. Thank you so much.
Antra, you have enough time. There's more time to carry on.
I was told 10 minutes, so I'm like, I'm one of those people, 10 minutes.
Are
Yes.
you able to deliver in different language?
Yes, so firstly, good question, because I had to deliver in sign language, that was a huge challenge, because I had people who could and couldn't, hear me. That was an interesting phenomena. So there was a lot of hand gestures and a lot of, then with the blind children that blind youth that I worked with, there was a lot of touching them, so each person's disability we had to work very closely with, and ideally you will not mix category of disability. We shouldn't do it the next time, was my learning, because trying to manage sign language, people who don't speak English or Hindi have a Kannada speaker and a sign language speaker all at the same time, which is what happened with what we did in Mysore, in JSS. What's the challenge? I was exhausted for 3 days afterwards. I was like, I'm not even sure if I was effective, so luckily we got a chance to go back and rehash and repeat and reaffirm all of the teachings. But yes, the language is what I do is so simple that anybody who speaks any language in that particular organization can work with me. And that's what we did at Cheshire. Was that there was two ladies, Anuradha and I'm forgetting her name right now.
Suma.
So, Suma. The two ladies worked with me in every session. One of them was always there to make sure that Kannada and I can speak English and Hindi and Bengali, but Kannada, and if there was sign language required or whatever, they were there all the time to make sure that the message got there. So it wasn't just stand there and do a nice presentation, and there was no presentation. It was just me talking, workshops, and then physically working with as many of them as possible. And I'm quite scary when I work with 300, so I managed to make 300 work too. Actually, I've done it with 10,000 kids in one go, so if I can get them all to listen to me. That shout bit helps, that few of them started crying. And weirdly, it wasn't the youth with disability who were crying, it was the caretakers. Any other questions? So, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.